Hello and welcome to the Offside Line Pod with David Barnes and me, Pete Burns. If you enjoy what we do, please subscribe so that you never miss an episode and tell your friends, family, teammates, clubmates and the people you sit next to in the stand all about us. And if you'd like to leave a positive review, it would really help us with the old algorithm as it helps other people find us. Thanks for listening, and here's today's show.
It's the offside line.
This is not soccer. Is that clear?
Stanger could be there. It's a try. A magnificent try for the 21-year-old.
Brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant.
Welcome to the Offside Line. Morning, Barney. How are you? It's Monday morning. The sky is clear blue and sunny and gorgeous, and it's been a great weekend of rugby. And how are you?
I thought of you, Burnsy, as I watched that Lions game, thinking, "This is the game this man's been waiting for all summer."
This is
the
exactly
moment
what I
has
needed.
arrived. It's a bit of a shame that it took till the second last game for the whole thing to come alive. But we'll take what we can get. We take what we get. So, have you got a spring in your step after watching that on Saturday?
I do. It was a brilliant game. I was actually kind of perversely half hoping that the Wallabies would hold on to win, as we discussed last week, because I felt they absolutely deserved. But they didn't deserve to lose that game because they were magnificent, and I'm sure we'll get into the roots of it shortly. But it was just to seal it 2-0, the first side since '97 to go 2-0 up in a Test series. I mean, it's just incredible. The first side since '74 before that. So it's brilliant for them to seal the deal and for, with their parochial hat on, for the Scottish guys to do so well. And again, we can dig into that. I thought Finn, he made one or two errors, but it was largely absolutely magnificent.
Yeah.
Hugh Jones took his try brilliantly. He was one of the most lively threats that they had in attack. Kind of a bit weird that he was the one that was subbed, but in many ways you can kind of argue that they couldn't necessarily afford to have a really lightweight backline out there, and keeping Budiaki out there was the way to do that. But having him at 13 and Farrell at 12 was an odd selection decision. But anyway, it ultimately didn't matter. And when Blair Kinghorn came on, he just showed everyone, as we predicted, that he is a Test lion through and through. I mean, he was absolutely just magisterial as he came out, and you're just thinking, if it hadn't been for injury and his late call-up, but really his knee injury, then he'd have had that fullback, and he could have finished that try that Hugo Keenan did. But he was brilliant, and interesting to see what they do with him this week. Yeah. So you, Barney, tell me about where did you watch it? You were presumably doing the match report from your
from the sofa in Portobello. Yeah. So even old Lions cynic Barnes had to kind of. But I was with you. I genuinely wanted Australia to win that. I'd want Lions to win the series, but I just it's just, I just think going into dead rubber this week, it's a bit flat. But then there's the challenge, because I saw this. I should check this before we came on. There's a stat. The last Lions team to do a clean sweep was something ridiculous like...
It was 1927 against Argentina. And that has a massive caveat against it, since for a couple of reasons that, Argentina didn't actually get Test status until the 90s.
Yeah.
It was also a tour that wasn't recognised until about 10 years ago as an official Lions tour. They beat every team going by about 40 points in the days when tries were worth three points. So they just swept everyone before them. So, it's a real caveat to that one. But yes, they won the internationals, in inverted commas, on that tour. And before that, it was 1904, which was David Bedell-Sivright's tour to Australia. And
so we see there's nothing on stake this week then. I mean, that's a pretty big record that those guys would like to... I mean, I think they know deep down it's always going to be you beat Australia. You didn't beat the South Africa or New Zealand. But, if so like going and, winning that 3-0 as opposed to 2-1, I think that is a statement. I think it would have been a bit of a disaster if they hadn't won the series. I think
totally.
3-0, then they're getting to the point where they're proving that they are one of the memorable Lions teams. I'm loath to use the word one of the great Lions teams, because I mean,
there's only ever been 13 winning Lions tours.
Since
1888. So I mean, they're up there, and they've played some great rugby. What you actually really want now is Australia to kick on, have a great rugby championship, and then be an actual contender in the World Cup in 2 years' time, because then it adds more, grist to the mill that this is actually a decent Lions team, because they were part. It's kind of like the '89 Wallabies, who then went on to win the '91 World Cup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it gives it a much better reflection than if they bombed out in the quarterfinals of the '91 World Cup.
Yeah, it's a good point. Fair point. Yeah, I agree with that.
Good. Right, before we get into this, Barney, let's look at other news that's happened this week. Scotland women were in action in Italy, in Parma, and there's a few areas of light and darkness in this result, because they were 15 points down at half time, and they almost pulled off a comeback victory and fell just short, and they lost 34-29. And obviously a massive highlight of the whole game was seeing Emma Wassell back playing after being out with her illness. But obviously it had a very slow start and they didn't get the win, so it's been another kind of difficult build-up game for the World Cup. But kind of crucially in the whole story of this game is the comments that Rachel Malcolm came out with in the build-up. Yeah. And you guys have covered that, so tell the listeners a wee bit more about that.
Yeah, so I wasn't actually on the call. Stuart Bathgate was doing it for the Offside Line. But, if you've not read it, you should... People, you're interested, you should read the Offside Line report. I thought she did a good job of it. But, I mean, Rachel is a clever cookie. She's a PhD. She's got PhD. She's a university lecturer. She's smart and she's a really good communicator. And, like the SRU use her on their podcast a lot, because she's kind of able to hit that sweet spot of, being interesting and informative and insightful, but, being able to kind of stay on message. So, she, there's no way that Rachel, to my mind, I don't know Rachel well at all, but there's no way to my mind that she didn't think long and hard about what she wanted to say when she was doing, and this was just a press conference or a press Zoom, as part of the build-up to the game. And, she was very pointed about how disruptive, upsetting, I think were the two words that she used. It was upsetting was the other word, but disruptive was certainly one of them. The build-up, some of the elements of the build-up to this World Cup have been, and specifically, there's been an ongoing negotiation over player contracts, which... seems to have just been pretty messy, pretty difficult, and pretty unsatisfying, certainly for the players involved, or the players not involved, as the case may be. And then the news, which I think we spoke about in the last podcast, that Brian Eason was moving on as coach after the World Cup, which she pointed out that she heard about the same time as us guys, which is the journalists. And she found that quite upsetting, because most of her international career, she pointed out, has been, not just her, it'll be the same with all the other senior players in the squad, is all at the same time as Brian's. So I think she was definitely trying to make a point, or thought it was time to make a point, that the women are not very happy. The women's team are not very happy about the way that they've been handled during the build up to this World Cup. And I've got every sympathy for them. I mean, it would be a kind of national outrage if you had your Scotland men's captain coming out and saying, look at the runaround we've been getting. So pretty disappointing. It reflects quite badly on the SRU, I would say. Very disappointing.
The contract thing for Brian Eason is so interesting, because I was trying to think. The caveat being, Scotland are not going to win the Women's World Cup.
Yeah,
because they're just so far behind the top four nations, which are England, New Zealand, France, and Canada. They're the kind of big four. Yeah. But I can't think of a single men's World Cup campaign that has gone well when the players know that the coach has already signed off at the end of the tournament.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I can't think off the top of my head of certainly any winning team who knew that their coach may stand down afterwards. Mm-hmm. And there may be, senior players might know that that's probably the plan. But I can't think of a single one that it was knowingly announced months out from the World Cup that the coach is not lasting beyond the tournament.
No, and if you can't remember it, Burnsy.
And psychologically, does that maybe shouldn't have an impact on how you perform, because ultimately the tournament finishes when it finishes for you, and it had what happens next shouldn't have a bearing on how you perform. But there's a sense of instability, I would presume, just as an undercurrent.
Yeah,
is not good for these campaigns, and you just want everything as much as you can control, because there's so many variables in any game, and any illnesses and sightings and cards and all sorts of things can go wrong. You can have, like the Wallabies apparently had on Saturday, where your bus is late to the ground. All these kind of things are out of your control. So you should try and control, as I say, control the controllables as much as you can. And it's a very strange thing that he has already been moved on without somebody else in place. And just the whole process is bizarre to me.
Yeah, and the players, senior players, seem to have been as in the dark with the whole thing, not been, I mean, instability,
and it compounds the issue of the contracts, because it's just another thing that they've got to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which has nothing to do with them playing the game.
No, and the instability, I think that's a good word that sums up the whole thing. We had, I'm going to go back to one of my hobby horses here, but we had this briefing with David Nucifora, and he talked about his vision for the pathway, and there's 8 departments, and one of these departments was the women's game, and he said, we'll deal with that after the World Cup. And so from a starting point, you're thinking, well, that's not great. I mean, what message does that, kind of send out? But there's also a case that, let's not disrupt things before that. But clearly, that's not the way the world works. These women have to know what their future looks like, their rugby future, if they're going to be concentrating on the World Cup, and it's just the right thing to do. So, David Nucifora said that, then disappeared off with the Lions. Alex Williamson, who's the chief executive, kind of backs that up when he speaks to the press a couple of weeks later, and then goes off with Scotland to Australia. Apparently, one of the things he's going to do is be talking to Gregor Townsend about his contract, and then Gregor says, well, we haven't talked about it because I'm here to concentrate on rugby. So I just think, these girls must be looking at it and think, there's instability because we don't know what's happening, and there's instability because there's nothing really out there to convince us that these guys are serious about what they say they want to do with women's rugby. I would say the 2 most important people involved in this whole negotiation are, well, I wouldn't say they are, they're not in the country, they're elsewhere doing something that I would say is not crucial to the future of the health of Scottish rugby. So what the hell are they doing over there when, you've got somebody like Rachel Malcolm, who's a really respected captain and a really even hand. She's not the kind of person that's going to, kick up a fuss because she just likes to hear her voice. And I just think it's a real shoddy mess. And I feel really sorry because it's instability. It's difficult, contract negotiations. I get that. And one part of the thing they want to do is they're trying to bring all the women's players. There's a lot of women's players. I think all the women's players who are on contracts are playing down in England. And the argument is, why are we paying for our players to be playing in the English league? Now, the flip side of that is it's the best league in the world. It's a great standard, and that's how that's going to improve. I can see it from both sides. I think the ultimate goal of getting them all back playing in Scotland for Edinburgh, Glasgow is, a worthy aim for 2 or 3 years' time. But there needs to be a plan to get that, and you certainly need to be a lot clearer about how you're going to do that for these people that are caught in the middle at the moment. So I just think I think Rachel dropped a bomb on them, and she was absolutely right. I don't think anybody looked at her comments and thought, well, she's overstepped. Like quite often when players speak out, there's you always think, well, there's a 2 sides to everything. I think everyone looked at that and thought, this is outrageous. So that was certainly my take on it. And also, sorry to keep on talking, but I was also, I was reading back Stuart's article today, and the SRU then put a statement out afterwards, basically saying, we've been, I thought the tone was terrible of their statement afterwards, which basically undercut, I don't know if you saw it, undercut Rachel. We've been negotiating. We've been negotiating. We understand it's difficult, but we've done everything right type thing. And I just think it was time just to take your medicine and, hold up your hands and say, like, we've got this wrong. We don't look good here. Instead of, I thought it was really poor, the tone just...
They are absolutely incapable as an organisation of doing that.
Yeah,
They've
absolutely.
proved year after year after year.
Yeah.
Simple wins in these sort of PR catastrophe moments. They never take what feels like the sensible option and just holding your hands up.
Yeah. I mean, the statement is, Scottish Rugby has been engaged with the Scotland Women Playing Group over many months to work through the contracting process in a timely manner ahead of the Rugby World Cup. We have now concluded contracting discussions with all members of the Rugby World Cup training squad. It's just, the tone that's just like, is Rachel... So Rachel clearly doesn't think it's been done in a timely manner, doesn't feel like that. And the other interesting thing I would say was, we put the article out on the website, and we shared it on Instagram and Twitter, and all these. And it was really interesting. There was about 5 or 6, at least 7 or 8 maybe, of the Scotland Women's squad members shared our post, and added in their own little note saying, we're with Rachel, Rachel's our captain, and all this just supportive stuff of Rachel. So it's I don't think it needed to be proven that she wasn't an outlier there. But I think it suggests to me that the players were very clear that they wanted to get this message across. Their captain, took responsibility for that, and they were backing her up. So, so I just thought, I was disappointed with the SRU response to it, although not massively surprised, as you point out, Burnsy.
No, tale as old as time.
Yeah, tale as old as time.
Right. I mean, we'll come back to that as we build up to the World Cup, which I'm really looking forward to now. But let's go back to Melbourne, the MCG. Yeah. What a game, what a night. Just delighted for those Scotland players. Trying to sum it up without being too kind of narrow focused on it, but I mean, what an incredible moment for those Scottish boys, and what a moment for the collective. As you say, the tour came alive with this game. I was having a bit of a debate with someone the other day, actually, over the weekend, when they're talking about the weakness of the Australian tour and the Lions not getting a good build-up to the test matches. And I was kind of thinking, well, actually, apart from New Zealand in 2017, that very rarely happens in the modern game. If you think back to 2001, so 97, very competitive matches, very few blowouts for the Lions. They really fought hard. They lost to the Blue Bulls in Pretoria in the build-up to the Test series. But every other game was a real battle. 2001, they played, a couple of, New South Wales County, a President's 15. They put like 200 points across those games. The Wallabies didn't really, I don't think they didn't release any of their top players into the provincial games. So, even when the Waratahs and the Reds and the Brumbies were very good, they had very few frontline Wallabies playing. Guys like Justin Harrison wasn't yet a Wallaby when he played. He then got his first cap against the Lions in the third test. 2005, again, they played some terrible teams. I mean, the only kind of real opposition they had was the Maori, and they lost that game.
Yeah, Hamilton.
Yep. And then 2009, again, the President's 15, it just happened. The Lions actually played terribly, and they managed to get sort of pull a victory out the bag. But they didn't really have any good games until they drew with South Africa A down in Cape Town. Mm-hmm. Then we get to 2013 again, some just poor, some real blowouts. 2021, massive blowouts. They were 40 point games against, they played the Sharks twice, played Western Province, and they kind of blew these teams away by 40 points. They kind of a bit of a stiffer challenge against Japan, but it was never actually in danger. There was a bit of a cruise in that first game, and they had to deal with the fact that they lost Alan Wynne-Jones to an injury after 7 minutes, and Justin Tapiric was out of the tour as well with an injury. So it was only 2017 when they did release some players like Sonny Bill Williams to play for the Blues that it was a stiffer competition, and they lost that game, and they drew with the Hurricanes between the first and second test, and they had a very good, in fact, Crusaders team, which was a real marker going into the Test series that the Lions won. But it wasn't a full strength Canterbury, but it was a lot of All Blacks who played that game, like Sam Whitelock, and I think they had an all Black front row and guys like that. But the point being, these tour games, they tend to be blowouts for the Lions, and then they might get one or two harder ones. And they had that with the FNP game, which was a tough one, and that sealed them up for the first test. The first test was just disappointing because although the Wallabies came back into it late on, the Lions had clearly taken the foot off the gas. They'd pulled off some of their key players, and all the focus was on Test 2. But then what a game. I mean, and what a difference having some big hitters like Skelton and Valentini, Parecki back, Lang Gleeson off the bench. We mentioned a few other guys from the FNP game that could have made an impact as well, and they might come in for the third test because I'm not sure how the fitness is. I think Skelton and Valentino were never going to play more than 40, 50 minutes because they've not played for months. And Skelton at test level struggles to play more than that anyway because he's just such a massive human, to drag around that field. And he was looking absolutely bust by the end when he came off. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, you say all that, and it was a brilliant contest, which is exactly what this tour needed. It saved the tour as a concept.
I mean, can you be a bit cynical and say this Australian team did this Australian team suddenly become world?
That's why I want them to have a good rugby championship. That's why I want them to go and keep building towards that World Cup in 2 years' time, because otherwise it tarnishes the achievement. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Although we've seen them put together good performances. You're beating England at Twickenham, pushing Ireland all the way in Dublin in November. they have, even in the Rugby Championship last year, they beat Argentina one week and then get 40 points put on them by Argentina the following week. But they've also pushed the All Blacks and the Springboks 4 chunks of games, and then they just don't have the depth of these other sides. Like, unlike the Lions, when they roll off the subs, they can't compete with that.
No,
and that's just the tale of rugby union in Australia, because they have the athletes, they're just not playing rugby union.
Yeah, I'd agree with all that. Absolutely.
But yeah, it was brilliant, and I'm just so pleased for, there's some bias when you know somebody, but I'm just so pleased for Finn Russell that he is getting the plaudits that he deserves. And I mean, obviously, it could have turned quite badly on him if they hadn't scored the try at the end and hadn't won the game, because thousands of people, perhaps millions of people around the world, were questioning why he wasn't going for a drop goal. But it ultimately didn't matter, because he carried on playing, and by carrying on playing, they won the game. And I suppose it was echoed in what they said that Andy Farrell had said to them at half-time was play big. And that's what that's playing absolutely to his strengths, is to play big and play confident and go for the try, and that's what they got.
Yeah, it was great, just wasn't it? Farrell kept on dropping back to take the drop goal.
And then he had to go clear at a ruck.
It was brilliant finish. Just a brilliant finish to a game. And what's your take on the ruck, the Jack Morgan?
Oh, at the time I thought it was absolutely perfect. I thought it was actually a perfect clear out. Carlo Tizzano's coming for a lot of criticism for grabbing his head, especially when that's not where he got hit. He's grabbing his forehead when he's got hit in the back of the neck. But Test series is on the line, and he's felt the impact. And there's going to be a lot of rugby players around the world at the elite level would have done exactly the same thing to at least get it looked at. Because it was 50-50. I actually thought it was a perfect clear out, but it was, an inch or two the wrong way, and it's a red card moment for Jack Morgan, which would have been pretty brutal for the only Welshman to play Test rugby on this tour. He's only remaining Welshman on the tour to be the villain of the piece. So I'm thrilled for him that didn't happen. I thought it was an absolute textbook clear out. There was some. You can slow it down and say his hand. He wrapped and then his hand's on the ground. I think he wraps first and then his hand hits the deck. And there's a real slow mo I've watched where you see him come in and Tizzano's chin then appears under his own armpit, which shows his whiplash of his head getting hit. But that's also just biomechanics as you hit the top of the neck. I think it's fine. Yeah. The desperation is that he is trying to highlight. He's felt it. Of course, he's felt it. He's been cleared out around from the jackling position. And he is then trying anything to get them looked, because 9 times out of 10 you'll find something, and they could have found something, but at the same time that is a rugby clear out, and that's what the game is.
So rugby incident, which is
it is. That's exactly what it is, and it was great. Was it? Oh Christ, I can't remember the referee's name now.
Piardi, Andrea Piardi.
No. With this incident, the Kiwi boy who did the first test. I can't remember now, but he said it was in the World Cup, and he goes, "So that is just there are head clashes in rugby. It doesn't have to be foul play."
Yeah. Yeah. It's a difficult one. Yeah. I actually thought the more controversial incident was the Dan Sheehan try.
It was, but I think it's okay, because you're diving in the same way that when wingers take off or anyone takes off.
But they're diving away from a tackle, or diving past a tackle, as opposed to diving over a tackle.
into the.
I'm sure by the letter of the law, it was totally. It was fine. It was a try.
I could see them having an issue with it. Yeah. The biggest one, as we discussed last week, was the Earl no arms tackle on Suaalii before he then got triple movement over the line and wasn't releasing and all the rest of it. But they should have gone back for a penalty, possibly a penalty try for that Ben Earl no arms tackle, because that incident brought Suaalii down where he was going for a try. Yeah. So I'd have a lot more issue with that one. I mean, how do you feel about Joe Schmidt and now Phil Wall coming out in support of Joe Schmidt's comments about the Jack Morgan tackle and the challenging the referees for the safety issue?
Yeah, I was quite surprised. I heard Will Kelleher on the Ruck podcast, kind of straight afterwards, kind of being a bit outraged that I mean, is it that unusual for coaches to do that? I didn't think it was that.
I think it's hard. Oh, well, it's a difficult one because it's not like you think back to the tour in 21 when the second test, Ches and Colby takes out Conor Murray in the air, and he gets a yellow card because the ref says he lands on his back, where he kind of lands on his shoulder, neck, and back. Now that I would say you maybe have grounds for saying, look, you got to that is a very vulnerable player. He was not expecting to get taken out in the air like that and flipped. Whereas Carlos Lozano's putting his head in for a jackal and he's cleared out in a ruck. And he's not injured and he's no concussion. There's no sense he's got a brain injury or any other, that it's, or he's coming at the side and croc rolled him or cleared him out with a neck roll or, I think it's the wrong thing to go down that the referees aren't looking after player safety, especially with this lawsuit that's going on in the background. Yeah,
I think that's right. I mean, the law's there for player safety. So, if Joe Schmidt's saying, they're not enforcing the laws, I think they should be done. And he is. I mean, you're inferring that anyway. I just didn't get that excited about it. I think it was after the game, he's saying we've got this law for player safety reasons. They should have enforced it in this case because I wanted my guy to get the penalty.
Yeah.
I just wasn't that. I wasn't that. I know what you mean. It's a good point that, there's so much bad publicity, not bad publicity, but dangerous fear about the dangers of rugby, sorry.
Yeah.
And we should talk about it because that's
the next head of referees coming out with this is tough going. I mean, I've said, I don't know if I said this on air to you before, but I genuinely have a fear that rugby will not exist in 20 years' time.
Yeah.
Because of safety issues. And, it's going to get legislated more and more, potentially in the courts. And you're going to get fewer and fewer parents putting their kids into play and fewer kids willing to play, especially if there's the spectre of major life-changing injury, whether that's physical or an impairment to your brain. Yeah, I mean, so to throw that around is dangerous for the game.
Yeah.
I would say.
I suppose it's dangerous if you think they're being insincere about it and you're doing it to kind of win an argument about that incident.
Because if you've got an issue with that, rucking is over. You're just going to have rugby league where you get tackled and everyone breaks away from the contact.
Yeah.
And ultimately, maybe that is in 20 years' time. There is the game has basically become a hybrid rugby league version of the game because it's just they can't legally continue this Wild West of the breakdown, which is a Wild West.
Yeah. God, you've talked yourself into from your your place.
I was feeling so good about the
place.
game, and now, oh gosh, it's all sound the death knell. It's all over. No, but I was disappointed with that. I mean, everyone's sore. I just feel like he's a bit more of a chill character, Joe Schmidt. I'm disappointed by.
Yeah, I thought.
Although actually, I say that. I mean, obviously, everything you ever hear about him, that's the last thing he is. He's not a chill character. He's ferociously intense.
But I thought he would take it on the chin. I thought he would. I mean, the Aussies are whinging like hell about it.
Of course they are. They wanted to go down. They wanted it to go to the third game. They need to keep the interest of this going. They can't afford to have a dead rubber, and that's what they've got. But I think it should still be a great game because the Lions need to show that they are worthy winners and a great team on their own to go and win 3-0. And the Aussies need a win.
Yeah.
They need to show something for that second test effort. I just wonder if they can get the emotional energy that they had in the second test and bring that into the third. I think that's going to be very difficult for them.
Yeah, and what kind of nick is Big Will Skelton and Rob Valentine in particular. That was 40 tough or 45 tough minutes for Skelton. I mean, I thought it was immense, to be honest with you.
He was incredible. He was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just
given
loved
how
his
little
attitude
played,
as well. He was just he was honestly just like, fuck you guys.
Yeah. So, without that, I think they're big, it's a lot, it's hard. I mean, I'd be tempted to play him for 20 minutes if that's all you get out of him.
Just get him out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Get yourself in the game. Go for bust because otherwise, you might as well. You might as well go for bust and run out of steam.
And what
in the
about
last
the
20
Lions?
minutes.
I think they will, as long as injury allows, they'll roll out the same team as much as possible. Or do you think they're going to try and reunite the Irish centres that they wanted for this game? Will they give the Scottish
tough,
centres
isn't it?
another go? Because Sione's now fit. He had a hamstring tweak last week. Not that it would have actually made a difference, because I think he had picked his Irish centres. And, the big call now would be to drop Hugo Keenan for Blair Kinghorn. But I don't think they'll do that. I think it's more likely that James Lowe again might make way, as I predicted that might have happened this week, but didn't.
I would go
he
with
was
that.
just so good, Kinghorn, when he came on.
Yeah.
And fair play, James Ryan, I was appalled by that selection, but he came on and did what he needed to do. And not that Scott Cummings couldn't have done exactly the same thing, which is basically just take a couple of lineouts and hit some rucks, but he did smash some rucks.
Yeah, he did smash a few rucks. Yeah.
I think I'd love to see Ben White, but that's not going to happen. They're more likely to give Alex Mitchell just more of a run. Give some parts to start again.
I mean, and it would be really tough dropping Alex Mitchell after not getting on the pitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it has happened before.
I think Alex Mitchell has been pretty good on this tour as well.
He has.
From a Scottish perspective, I can see why we want White, but White wasn't on the tour to start with.
The Nines
he's
have
had
all
a
been
good
good.
tour.
All been good.
Yeah. So I think they stick with that. I think if you're asking me, I think Blair Kinghorn comes in on the wing for James Lowe. James Lowe drops out the squad. Because what do they do? They've got Farrell, Mitchell,
maybe Hansen, and
Wait, what's the latest with Hansen?
Well, they might go 6-2 then.
Yeah. Yeah. The centres. Yeah, I think they might.
I think they'll go Irish. I think they'll go Irish. Oh no, I don't think they can, because if Gary Ringrose reported concussion symptoms, he needs a 12-day break.
Does he?
Yeah.
From when he reported it.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I thought it'd be right. I hadn't really.
But even if it's from that game, which was a Tuesday, he won't have time.
So then,
and Aki was good, apart from that stupid penalty where he was getting
really stupid penalty. He was looking at the. He was looking at the referee.
I know,
right in front
and
of the
he
post.
obviously got absolutely skinned by Suoliti for Tom Wright's score, but he was very good. Apart from that, he had some absolutely a couple of monstrous carries.
Yeah. And we'll see it. I mean, 2 It's a hammy, or was it calf?
It was a hammy, tight hammy. It wasn't like a major one, so he could play.
Yeah, I thought Tag Byrne was immense again.
God, I love how he just looks like kind of broken the whole time.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Artie Sevilla always looks absolutely knackered whenever there's a break in play, like he's broken, and then he just kind of unleashes himself again as soon as the whistle goes.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because he wears that. I mean, I always remember years and years ago, what's the guy John Shaw saying that once he started wearing a scrum cap, everyone started noticing him. And this was the days before like scrum caps. Okay, I wonder if it's because of his blue scrum cap. I just thought like he was just like everywhere. He was just So, so
Richie Gray, when he had his blonde mop, you saw him everywhere.
Yeah. So in terms of up front, I don't know. They just see him again. Really,
it just works. It just works so well with Genge coming off the bench, and Will Stewart much better this week than he'd been last week. Kelleher fine, kind of anonymous, but he was fine.
If Joe McCarthy comes back,
I don't know if he's going to be fit. I'm hearing his foot is not going to be right. And I mean, from an aesthetics point of view, you just want to see Gibson Park and Finn playing forever together. I mean, it's just what a great combination. That is one of the great Lions pairings.
Yeah.
You kind of go on Leinster, go and buy Finn out of his contract at Bath, let him go play there. Not that the URC rivals want to see that, but just from a aesthetic point of view, just
I cannot imagine
how much fun you'd have.
I cannot imagine what Glasgow Warriors fans would make of that. If
they would not take that very well. But it'd be great to watch.
Yeah, but it's an interesting. It'll be an interesting final game. I'm still a bit of a Lions. I'm still not. I enjoyed the game, but I'm not convinced that this has been a classic tour. To be honest with you.
So, how do you feel about 4 years' time then in New Zealand? Is that still intriguing because they've only ever won once?
Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I think that's.
And they've seemed to. Hopefully, they've seen from 2017 the value of having competitive build-up games.
Yeah. That's what I hope they do right. And and let's not. It doesn't have to be that long. Let's just make it like a really good tour
I don't know, because I always get disappointed when they come in and originally this was what was it? End up being 10 matches. I think it ended, and originally it was 8, and I was like, that's not enough because
People
you
can't
need
play
to
themselves
bed
in
in.
it.
You need to bed in combinations. You need to be able to show that you can handle the
that's a
pressure
good point.
or not handle the pressure. So, the more games, I like the games.
No, I take
the
that
only,
back.
The only
You're
downside
right.
to New Zealand, of course, is like the stadiums are small, so you're not going to get these mega occasions in the same way as you do in South Africa and Australia or
Yeah.
France, as we've discussed before. But I think the biggest ground is Wellington, and that's 50,000.
Yeah. Well, I was at Wellington for the 2005 test there. I thought it was a pretty good atmosphere. That was the
I mean, brilliant.
one-
And that
that was the one that they got hammered in the first test.
That was the Dan Carter masterclass.
Yeah, it was. But the Lions started off really well. Alfie Thomas scored a try in the first 3 minutes, and then Dan Carter
Round the
turned it
show.
on. Yeah, but no, I think I don't think it's the end of the Lions right now. But I just think it's been a bit. I still think they beat a good Australian team, a better Australian team than the week before. Once their big hitters had come off, they'd kind of run out of steam a wee bit, but like they did it, and they showed great nerve at the end to do that. That game could easily have got away from them. So good on them. I'm just not going to get too excited about them being. I'm just, you know me. You know what I'm like, Burnsy. I'm just an old cynic.
This is why we have such a great balance on this pod, Barney.
Yeah. And do you back Lions to win it, make it 3?
Yes, I do. I
think so as well.
I just think that emotional pitch that Australia got to in the second test, because they're not consistently performing like that, so much of that relied on emotion. They had a great start, clever trick plays at the line out just to get their Lions on the back foot, use Skelton Valentini so well. Massive crowd behind them, this huge moment, everything on the line. They have to win. Absolute desperation. I don't think they can do that again.
They've shot their bolt.
Especially with nothing actually on the line.
Yeah.
So I think I see the Lions playing a much more controlled game because they were spooked first half.
Yeah, they were.
So I think they'll do it.
Yeah,
and 3-0 in the modern era, it's unthinkable. Previously.
Yeah. One last question. What did you, or I don't know if it's the last question, you might have more questions, but what did you think of Maro Itoje's to the referee? They started it, ref. They started
that was hilarious. It was so interesting. I saw Chris Jones on the BBC, so it was fun, on the live text, so he was obviously saying it on the radio, was just saying what an incredible performance Itoje put in. And I was having this argument, or I highlighted this on a kind of WhatsApp chat, and our pal Stu Patterson came back. He said, "No, I thought he was good. You should watch it. You should watch it again." So I am going to rewatch it. So I promised him I'd rewatch it with Maro Cam on and just watch Maro throughout the game, because I thought he was poor. He gave away 2 very stupid penalties early on. He backed out of one tackle with Skelton. I just didn't see him. And then he kind of rescued that late on with, he was influential in ruck clear outs late on, and he won a turnover at the Mole. So that was good. But I don't know. I was astonished that he got man of the match.
Did he get man of the match?
He got man of the match. Oh, now that is also what really threw me is that is presumably given by the host broadcaster.
Yeah.
So I was mystified by that. So I will watch back. I'm going to, having said all that, I will withhold ultimate judgment until I've done Maro Cam.
We're going to have to do an emergency pod where you come on and
we can do a watch along. We do a live watch along.
Grovel at Stuart Patterson for getting it all wrong. And admit that you bow to his expert eye.
Exactly. So we do a live watch along. But
I think he should get points taken off for that line. I just thought it was ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
he started
it. I mean, that was, and then also I didn't love the way he sort of came over with the ref at the end. Kind of dismissing Harry Wilson,
who was speaking really respectfully, and
and like mid flow, just sort of almost virtually put his hand in his face.
Yeah,
it was. I didn't like that, but
yeah. Speaking of Speaking of captaincy, did you see? We'll go off topic here, and I don't claim to be an expert on cricket, but did you see the end of the cricket last night?
I didn't, but I read about it. So you tell me.
Totally.
You tell me from having watched it.
Yeah, so this is a non-expert view. Not that people would say it as a non-expert view in rugby as well. But
Yeah, we certainly have that. Yeah.
yeah, but England, like basically had gone their way because they had to bowl India out. They made a big, huge first innings score, and if they bowled India out, they probably would have to bat again. And then actually India got ahead of them a wee bit, but if they bowled them out, they'd have just knocked off the runs they needed. But anyway, India dug in 2 guys, middle order guys. Can't remember the names right now. Just dogged it out. Stayed there for hours and hours and hours. And then when it gets to the last 15 overs for the day, you can shake hands and say it's a draw. Nobody's winning this.
Yeah.
And Ben Stokes, England captain, clearly wanted to do this because they've got these fast bowlers who, Geoffrey Archer, whose body's kind of, and Stokes' body as well.
His hamstring was gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And they've been out there for 2 days pretty much, and so they basically want off. So anyway, they say to these two Indian batsmen who are both, one's on 85 and one's on 93 or something like that. How about we, let's shake hands, and they kind of avoid it. Basically say, no, we're staying out here. We want to get our centuries, and Stokes isn't happy about it at all. The commentators were. I thought. The commentators say, "Oh, Stokes is the kind of guy. Personal records don't mean anything to him. He's all about the team, and he won't understand the mindset." There, I was like, "Well, that's maybe true. That's maybe not." But I can totally see why these boys. One of the guys had never had a century in his Test career before, so they wanted to stay out there, and so they took off their frontline bowlers, but they put the guy. What's his name? Oh, I've totally forgotten his name now. And he was just. He was bowling like you or I could have bowled better than this guy. He was just like lobbing these big. And the boy was like hitting them for 6, and the England players are standing there shaking their heads. The guy gets the century, he's absolutely delighted, and his pals celebrating, but the rest of them are like, England players are shaking the head and just a bit petulant afterwards about, totally outrageous. And you think, well, I thought it was like.
Don't have to declare,
Yeah, exactly. They don't have to declare. And of course, those boys want to stay and get their century. And earlier in the series, there was one night when the England opening batsmen were like farting around so that they couldn't get through, so that the Indians couldn't bowl at them, pulling back. It's a contest, and why should they make it easy for England to arrest England? So I thought it was pretty poor from Stokes. That's my expert analysis, and I was pretty disappointed because I think Ben Stokes is a bit of a superhero, but as a sportsman. But I thought it was hilarious because those balls that he was bowling were like literally you or I could have done that, Pete. No problem.
I'll have to go back and watch this then.
Yeah, it was funny.
With the kind of Benny Hill music on in the background.
Yeah, I just thought but they were kind of grumbling about India, and I thought, well, you're the guys that are bowling these balls. So anyway, yeah. So that's my tuppence.
Good.
From the guy that runs the Inside Edge Cricket Substack,
well,
also delegates all the real
you can
cricket.
Subscribe to now, listeners. It's proving incredibly popular. So yeah, get on. It's getting superb coverage of Scottish cricket on the Inside Edge,
and you'll get
Substack.
more expert opinion than mine. It'll be Graham McPherson and Gary Heatley and people like
that.
Yeah,
you're not going to get this from Barney. Can't remember anyone's name or.
Yeah, totally. I can't remember the other 2 guys' names either.
You'll get actual expert opinion. Brilliant, right, Barney. On that note, we'll be back next week. We will pick apart the 3rd test. Hopefully, some more Lions heroes. Hopefully, the Scottish boys burnish their names in legend forever as part of this tour party as they go 3-0, and we'll discuss it all then.
Perfect.
Cheers, Barney. I'll see you next week.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
It's the offside line.
This is not soccer. Is that clear?
Almost danger. Danger could be there.